Hey and welcome back to my channel. I'm Allie. Today we are talking about the Heart Killers. This honestly is one of my top rewatches. I love it. They did amazing with the series. I'm gonna do a little bit of a recap, talk about the first episode. Spoiler warning, if you haven't seen the Heart Killers episode 1 or anything like that, or the series at all, I suggest you go watch it, then come back, then we can have a little party. But let's just get into it. So the show throws you into the deep end automatically. You're no life vest, nothing. We are first introduced to our first character, Bison. He is currently on a job as an escort or a host, trapping a man that is a very bad person, okay? Bison takes him up to a private room. They sing karaoke, Bison does, what he does best on his job. The fucking bad guy doesn't expect anything. Then, later, after they sing karaoke, we are introduced to our second character, Bison's older brother, Fidel. And he is disguised as a waiter in this establishment. And so, Fidel goes into the room, with his card, being all, trying not to be suspicious. But then, he uncovers, and there's a gun laying there. And, yeah, you know what happens, right? No? Okay, well, basically, they, the bad guy's in the pool, he thinks he's like, he's chilling, No, of course not. Boom, 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 And so, yeah, that's what happens. After, Bison doesn't want to go home, so he jumps on a motorbike and he goes to the bowling alley, where we are now introduced to our other characters, Kent and Style. And we see them, they're just hanging out, having a couple drinks, being fun, But also they have another motive. Kent sees Bison bowling. He immediately catches his attention because as the music goes up, and it's like, and he says, quote, "Shorty in red." Style goes, quote, "Well, what are you waiting for?" unquote. And Kent goes over, being his charming little self. And goes over to Bison, bowls right alongside him, and says, and gives advice to Bison, and says, he should shift his leg to get a better strike. And, he didn't debate, And he says, well, thanks for the unsolicited advice. Props. Anyways, so Kent basically got told, to get lost, and that he's not interested. But Ken doesn't back down. He doesn't give up easily. And instead of backing down and going back to his table with Style, he goes and says, I was just making small talk because I thought you were cute. Okay. Bison responds with, see, that wasn't so hard. No need to be patronizing. Just when we thought that Kent would give up, he goes, turns around, goes back to his table when Bison says, weren't you trying to teach me how to hit a spike? And then the music goes up. It's a moment. They have, that little rolling scene. It's cute. And, you know what happens next. But they have their little fun at a hotel. That's all I'm saying. And then let's move on to the next scene, where Style is in a sports car, his sports car. And I can't for the life of me thought that, why did he's on his phone driving his car on the road, and he thought it was a good idea to text? We'll think about that. Okay. And what do you know? He rear ends Fidel. Yes, the hitman that we talked about. Yes, him. Star doesn't know anything about Fidel. He doesn't know, Bless this man. They get into huge argument. Fidel is saying, well, you shouldn't be on your phone while driving. He'll tell Fidel, well, I can fix your car, just bring it over, But obviously, Fidel can't do that because what's in the trunk. And so, he does, well, I gotta get going. So Fidel leaves, Style's like, oh, that was weird. I honestly, I get that. So next scene, we are at Heartburger. It's a place where the two brothers, hitman, have been, laying low, doing the normal thing. They work there, they own it, so, and the only reason they have moved here is because Bison was the one that got drunk karaoke. But it'll be, the sensible one. He's like, oh, I gotta take care of this. So he takes care of that. They move. They're not Heartburger, and they're doing the whole entire new thing. And we get this scene where Bison says, quote, "If being a hitman is too hard, shouldn't we just quit?" And then we get that like Bison doesn't want to be a hitman forever. He doesn't want to do this kind of line of work anymore. He's done. Fiddle goes and said, well, it's not easy to quit, and plus, we only kill bad people. Now we are back at Style's shop as Style wants Ken's car, and he begs Ken, like, give me your car, please sell me your car. Ken's not gonna do that, because it was given by his dad as all that is left for him. And that's kind of like a key moment that also plays more into this show. We also then learn that Kent used to steal cars back in the day, but that his hands are clean now. In the next scene, we are introduced to a very important character in this show. Other than our 4 other characters, this guy is important. Okay, so we are introduced to Captain. He is a, police informant, the guy that put away Kent when he was stealing cars. And we learned that because Kent is rolled back because Captain calls him and is like, hey, I need you to do another job. And Kent's like, well, I can't do another job. Like, I don't want to keep working for you, And and then Captain is like, well, you better, I need you to do this job or I'm gonna, blackmail you. And that's basically what Captain does, is that they're in this scene where Captain explains that I need you to get information on these 2 hitmen brothers. And he gives Kent a photo of Bison outside the Heartburger. And Ken's like, oh, I know that. Kent, yeah. So, and apparently back when Kent got arrested for stealing cars, Captain arrested him and said, I'll make you a deal. And so basically Captain says well, if you work for me, I will get your record, clean, sponged. But apparently he did, but only, to I need you to do more work. He hasn't fully, and that's where the blackmail comes in to do this job. It's I can still get you, I can still bring it up, But Captain's saying now is that, well, if you do this job for me, I'll have it completely white. And Ken's like, well, gotta do it for, his little brother that he has. Captain wants Kent to go undercover and learn about the 2 hitman brothers and who is the big boss and get them. After that ordeal, Kent makes his way over to Heartburger. I wonder how he found out about Heartburger. Kent comes into the doors and he, spots Bison because, he acts surprised that Bison works here or and Bison owns the place, It's oh, you work here? I didn't know that. It's and he also says, oh, I woke up in an empty bed and I thought I slept with the ghost. Okay. But Bison says, yeah, I own the place. How did you find it? Isn't this too much of a coincidence? Exactly, Bison. But Kent plays it off and, says, oh, well, my tattoo parlor is, close by. And it's well, I saw this place and I thought, I thought I'd try it, It's and he says, well, I never thought I'd find, I never thought I'd run into someone so memorable. He's really laying on his charms here. Really laying on his charms. And he might be a little bit afraid that he's, trying to do a hitman. Talking to a hitman. Trying not to get caught, Also, Bison doesn't question it. anymore. He doesn't really ask that many most questions, honestly. It's like, you know, which I feel like he should, but I digress. You know, they get a burger and stuff. He hands him a burger. One thing is, though, is that Bison does not know how to cook for the life of him. You know, can't order that burger, and he's like, well, you know, here's your burger. Burnt. And he serves him a burnt burger and, you know, everything on it, veggies and stuff like that. And, you know, Kent goes along with it. He plays his part well. He eats it, you know. But as, you know, Kent doesn't like, you know, vegetables, he, you know, picks off his vegetables and stuff, and like, well, you know, Bison says, well, I could have took those off. He's like, and then Kent's like, well, that's just, you know, for us to get to know each other now. And then, like, he, you know, carefully just, you know, there's a knife beside him, and he carefully, you know, just tosses it aside, and it's like, and he catches it, and they both catch it, and it's like, and Bison's like, well, be careful, it's sharp. And, like, I thought that, like, you know, Kent was testing him or something. It's like, ooh, careful. To my discredit, I do get Kent's side and why he did that. But I also feel like, yeah, he was forced and blackmailed. But also, I feel like he also had a choice. Back when he was selling cars, he could have paid, you know, for his time. He could have went to jail. And I get that he had a brother that probably couldn't take care of himself. But now you're having to deal with all of this when you could have dealt with it back then. And you couldn't have this problem. Like, he couldn't blackmail you this time. You know, I also get that part, to be devil advocate, you know. After, you know, Kent eats, Kent wants his burger delivered. But Bison doesn't say that he does deliveries, you know, but he'll personally deliver it to him in person. Kent, you know, takes the offer and says, will you go out with me? I'll show you the area. Yeah. Laying on thick here, like, laying it on thick. I mean, shit, like, why not, right? I guess. But Bison catches on, and he says, like, well, you don't have any ulterior motives or something, do you? It's like, you know? Very funny show, very funny. I get the foreshadowing, okay, I get it. You know? But Kent, you know, plays it well. He plays it off, you know? He says, you know, nonchalantly, it's like, if I said I wanted to be your boyfriend, would you think it's too soon? Yes, honey. Yes, it's too soon. But Bison takes the bait, and he, you know, appreciates that Kent is straightforward. Of course. Well, you know, that's just my opinion, but whatever. He even likes it, honestly. And we've lost Bison now. So, well, it is fine. It's fine. And, you know, like, they're, you know, having their moment, and it's like, you know, they're about to, you know, kiss. When, thank God, Fiddle walks in and catches them in the act. It's like, thank God, you know, thank God for Fiddle, you know. And honestly, Fidel's the only sensible one here, and, you know, Bison is lost in, you know, Kent's eyes, and it's like, Fidel's over here is like, this is suspicious. How did he know that we were here, and how did he find this place, you know? And, you know, he finds Kent suspicious off the bat, you know, like, yeah, I would too. Oh, and then, you know, Fidel is very suspicious of Kent, and he talks to Bison, is like, have you checked him out yet? Have you done, like, your research on him? Like, how do you know he's not using you, or, like, trying to get close to you, or something like that? And Bison goes, well, well, I've checked him out, and several, you know. But Bison says that it's purely a coincidence. Oh, we lost him. It's fine. Then, after that scene, we are off to the next scene, where we are over at Styles' garage, where Fidel has dropped off his Jeep to get fixed by Style, who said he would fix his car after, you know, he hit it, obviously. Just obviously a different day, obviously. So, as Style is fixing and cleaning up his car, he finds a heart burger pin that Fidel has. Uses that pin and keeps it until Fidel comes back to retrieve his Jeep, and pins it on his like jumpsuit and pins it on his like tank top, and basically like say like come get it, you know. Basically teasing Fidel and playing a game, you know. But Fidel's not having that at all. He doesn't want to play his game, you know, like just give me like, you know. But you know, Fidel goes over to him, gets the pin, and Styles like all like, you know, all like this, and he's like, well, be careful. The next scene, we are with Bison and Kent, and we are in Kent's car. Bison says that you don't look like a typical tattoo artist, and more like those upper crust tattoo artists, meaning that, oh, you must be one of those rich tattooers. That's what I'm getting. Then Kent goes, hardly, I just have enough to get by. We learn also that Bison and Kent, as they say, Kent is 29 and Bison is 24, as they have discussed. And then Bison goes is like, well, should I address you differently? It's like, Kent is like, I mean, you can. Should I call you little brother? It's cute. Bison's like, nah, we don't know each other like that. And Kent goes is like, well, then we can get to know each other today, as Kent takes Bison on a tour. Kent asks, you know, Bison questions, goes back and forth, like, are you this kind of person? Are you that kind of person? Are you like a mountain person, a sea person, you know, stuff like that. And Bison likes the sea, and then Kent's like, well, what if I told you that if I'm afraid of the ocean? Because something happened to Kent when he was a kid and he almost drowned. Bison comforts him, like, that's understandable, and then they have like, you know, kind of like a moment, and then Bison asks about the tattoo behind Kent's ear, and then Kent goes on to say it's how he like that's how Kent likes to spell his name. Then Kent says like, you want to know what my Kent means in Thai? And he says beloved, and he says, well, too bad I have no one who loves me right now. So that was a cute moment. The next scene, we are at a Heartburger with Kent and Bison. They have finished their tour. They're back at Heartburger, you know, dropping Bison off, and Bison's thanks for the tour, you know, and then Kent's like, well, I love being a good neighbor, you know. It's like, I'm always, you know, I'm not that far. You stop by the tattoo parlor, you know, if and he's like, well, if I'm ever hungry, I can go to your place, you know. And then Kent's like, well, Kent grabs, you know, and holds Bison's hand and says like, well, what if I want to do what we did last night? He's talking about the other scene where they're at the hotel. And Bison goes like, what do you mean? I don't remember. I must have been too drunk. Kent moves in closer, you know, and says like, well, let me give you a reminder. And then, you know. But Fidel interrupts yet again. Fidel, you know, hands Bison all the food that he has, tells him to go inside, you know. And we get that, you know, thing that Fidel wants to talk to Kent. So Bison goes inside, you know, Kent tries to leave, but, you know, Fidel's like, wait. And they talk. And Fidel says, are you hitting on my brother? Straightforward, literally. Kent says, yes, is that not allowed? Fidel says, well, what do you want with him? You already slept with them. What else do you want? It's like, you already got what you wanted, didn't you? It's like, you know, chuckles to himself. He's like, you know, well, he seems to like me just fine. You know, but like, oh, you are full of yourself, aren't you? Like, you know? It's like, and Fidel's like, well, he may like you, but I don't. And, like, you have to get through me first. On to the next thing, we are with Kent. He's on the phone with Captain. We are back to that, yep. Well, and then Kent's like, well, I don't have any leads yet. And then Kent's like, well, why do you sound so discouraged so soon? You know, like, come on, hurry up. It's like, they just made another hit. We got it, like, you know? And Kent's like, well, is it too late to back out now? It's like, you know? And Captain's like, you can't, no, you can't. Like, you'll find a way, you know? You got keep looking out for you and your brother and like your future and all that. So the call ends, you know, and then there's a knock at the door. I wonder who it is. You know, can't open the door, you know, it's Bison, you know, holding a food, you know, a burger. It's like, it's like, are you closed yet? It's like, yes, we're closed, but something special I can open all night long, you know, blah blah blah, stuff like that. You know, they chat, it's like, and Ken's like, well, oh, this is a better burger than one that you made. It's like, banter. Like Kent says something like, you and Fidel don't look like, are you really brothers? And then, you know, Bison goes, well, we had the same mother but different dads. We also apparently learn that Bison's actually never had a serious relationship, which I wouldn't put it past him. I mean, look at his job. I mean, yeah, you probably can. I mean, also with Fidel too, it's like, yeah, I mean, so then Kent's like, well, what do I gotta do to, you know, take you out? And Bison goes, well, you gotta win Fidel over first to get to me. Like, and he says like, well, as long as Fidel's single, so am I. And then it goes, like, Bison says, like, whoever takes Fidel out needs to be someone who's bold and crazy. And, you know, Ken's like, oh, well, I know exactly who the person to do this. I wonder, huh? And then they get close, they have a little moment, you know, try to do a little kiss, but then, you know, Bison, you know, instead takes a sandwich, and, you know, Kent still tries to go for it, but then they're interrupted by, Kent's little brother, Babe. After that, and then we are now on to our next scene where we are back at Heartburger with Style and Kent outside of the burger place, spying on Fidel, literally. And then Kent has as Style to hit on Fidel. I wonder who saw that coming. And then Style's like, you want me to hit on that, jerk? Like, that's the guy that had the accident with. And then Ken's like, that guy? And it's like, fuck yeah, that guy. He's like, ugh. And then Style's like, that's your crush's brother? And Ken's like, yep, he's in my way, and like, I need your help. Style's like, not gonna happen. Nope. I don't want to waste my time on that. I'm out of here. And, you know, Style tries to leave. Kent stops in. It's like, what can I do for you to do this for me? It's like, I'll pay you, I'll pay you. But Style's like, nope, I can't be bought. And then he says, unless, and we know where this is going. He says, unless you give me your dad's car. And Style is like, if you're okay with that, then it's a done deal. And so Kent agrees, but on one condition. Style has to make Fidel fall head over heels in love with him. But yeah, Kent agrees. And then, you know, done deal, set, you know. And it's like, and I was thinking, it's like, Kent, did you forget anything? Maybe, like, we should talk about how, you know, Fidel's a hitman, you know, you're sending your best friend to go hit on a hitman, you know, it's like, maybe you should do more context, you know, tell Style, you know, like, no, we don't get that. Okay, cool, okay, so next scene, it's night at Heartburger now. The place is, you know, closing, Fidel's inside cleaning, you know, it's like, and then, you know, Style comes in, and, you know, Fidel's, you're like, well, you know, he doesn't look yet, he doesn't know who it is, he says, like, we're closed, and he looks around, and you can obviously tell that he's not pissed, but, like, annoyed, like, how did you find this place? And he basically asks, like, Fidel literally asks, like, how did you find this place? Like, you know, so I was like, there's nothing out of my reach that, you know, I can't find if I want it, you know. It's like, okay, no wonder you and Ken are best friends. You know. And then, like, Style is basically saying, is like, why don't you buy me a burger, like, in exchange for the car repairs, you know? It's like, and then Fidel's like, aren't you just shameless asking me to buy you a meal when you re-ended me? Huh. Okay. You can see on Fidel's face that he's like clearly annoyed. It's like, then we pan to a shot where Fidel is holding like kind of like a butter knife, kind of like in his hand, like under here, and like holding it, and he's like so annoyed, but you know, it's like, and then you have Style on the other hand, like he doesn't know if this guy is a hitman, you know, like he doesn't know what this guy can do, you know. It's like, would it be better if Style did know or not know? Because this scene, they show it twice of him having the knife there. Like, they show it twice. It's like, you know, I could. You know? Yeah. Anyways, you know, Fidel says that the kitchen's closed, so basically Style's like, well, give me a beer then. So, Fidel does that, you know, not willingly, but, you know, what can you do? Anyways, he gives him the beer, you know. It turns into having 3 to 4. Okay, cool, you know? And then it goes to 5, then 6, and you can clearly see Fidel's patience dwindle. Like, this man has patience. Let me tell you. Oh my god. Ugh. The patience on Fidel. Oh my god. Like, and these are not cans. These are not like beer cans. These are like glasses. Like, glasses of beer, you know? And they're not like they're cute little glasses. They're like the chunky, you know? Ugh, my god. Yeah. Ugh. I would be annoyed. I would be so annoyed. Ugh. But I gotta give the patience to Fidel. Oh my god. Ugh. And then, you know, Style is drunk, you know. Fidel is, you know, obviously annoyed. And, you know, Style is like, you know, if we were in a club, I would be dancing all around you. He pulls him in, you know, goes around his waist, and it's like, touchy. You know, and then Fidel is really not having. He pushes him down on, you know, the bench, and it's like, you have tested my patience. You need to go. And Style's like, I'm not gonna go unless you drive me home. And he's like, Fidel's like, you're really not gonna go? Okay. And he plays into this little game, and he's like, Fidel basically, you know, puts his knee down onto the seat. And, you know, plays his game, you know, and Style's like, oh, I want him over now. I was like, oh, you know, and then Fidel, you know, the music goes, and, you know, and Fidel's like, and at the end, he grabs Style by the ankles and literally drags him out by his ankles out of the restaurant, shuts it and locks it. You know, Style obviously angry, it's like, and he says like, I'm gonna take you out. Like, you know? And then Fidel, obviously pissed off, you know. I would be annoyed too, Oh, and then, you know, Fidel finds his wallet on the ground, takes it, has his ID out, and he researches on the internet of who, like, you know, Style is, and he finds out that Kent and Style are friends. And that's the end of the episode. Yeah, that was a whirlwind, guys. I know. This one is like, it just pushes you into the deep end, and you just gotta learn how to swim. Sorry, Kent. My bad. That's not a torch to you. I'm sorry. But yeah, literally, like, there's no like warm feelings. It's like all like, even with Bison and Kent being all like lovey-dovey towards Bison, it's all fake during this period, you know. It's like, he's only doing this to get information. Obviously, he does not really actually like Bison to this point. And Fidel obviously does not trust Kent or Style or at all, but he can't really, you know, control what Bison does every single minute of the day. So, I mean, what can you do? But yeah, that's the end of the episode. Hope you guys like it. I will be doing you know, more recap videos, stuff like that. I'll also still be doing reaction videos, don't worry. I still love my reaction videos, but I want to integrate, there we go, integrate new videos, like recap videos, talking about, like, you know, stuff like that. But if you liked it, hit the subscribe, like, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!